The air in Grandma Sally's vast, echoing Victorian smelled like dust, decay, and something metallic and cold, like old pennies and regret. I stood in the oppressive silence of what used to be the grand living room, sunlight struggling through grimy bay windows, illuminating motes dancing like agitated spirits. My hands were fists at my sides, knuckles white. Because I knew. I knew now. And the knowing was a physical weight crushing my lungs, a scream trapped behind my teeth. And the reason my family is dead. Not directly, maybe. But I was the conduit. The unwitting delivery boy for a vengeance so cold, so calculated, it makes my blood freeze even now. Buckle up. This isn't just a story about inheritance or dementia. This is about Grandmother Sally, the brilliant psychologist who weaponized her own mind against her children, using mine as the fucking firing pin. And she won. It started, like these things do, with whispers. M.O.M. Lisa and Uncle Mark hadn't spoken properly in years. Ancient grievances, mostly financial, stemming back to Grandpa Frank's messy death a decade prior. Grandma Sally, sharp as a tack back then, had smoothed things over, kept the fragile peace with her quiet authority and psychological savvy. She was legendary in her field, you know? Wrote textbooks, consulted on high-profile cases. Her mind was a fortress, impenetrable, until it supposedly wasn't. The call came about 8 months ago. Mrs. Henderson, Grandma's long-suffering housekeeper, voiced thick with concern. Jacob, dear, it's your grandmother. She's slipping. Badly. Forgetting things. Leaving the stove on. Talking to Frank like he's in the room. She needs family. She needs you. Guilt, that reliable old bastard, twisted in my gut. I lived closest, just an hour's drive away in the city, yet my visits had dwindled to obligatory holidays. Work, life, the sheer exhausting weight of my own problems, they felt like valid excuses, until that moment. Driving out to Elmwood, the town time forgot, felt like entering a different dimension. Grandma's house, whispering pines, loomed at the end of a long, overgrown drive, less welcoming manor, more decaying Gothic sentinel. Inside, the change hit me like a physical blow. The pristine order I remembered was gone. Books lay scattered, dust-coated surfaces thickly, and the air held it stale, closed in smell of neglect and something medicinal, faintly sweet. And there she was, perched on the edge of her favorite wingback chair, looking impossibly small. Her white hair, usually a neat crown, was wispy and unkempt. Her eyes, once piercingly intelligent, now seemed cloudy, unfocused, drifting around the room without landing on anything specific. Grandma? I knelt beside her chair, taking her frail hand. It felt like brittle bird bones. Her head swiveled slowly. A flicker of something crossed her face. Confusion. Calculation. Then it was gone, replaced by a vague, watery smile. Jacob. Is that you, dear? Have you seen Frank? He promised had fixed the leak in the conservatory. Her voice was thinner, readier than I remembered. That was the beginning of the performance, a masterclass in cognitive decline. Some days she was almost lucid, reminiscing about my childhood with startling clarity. Other days she'd stare blankly at the wall, muttering about people long dead or events that never happened. Mrs. Henderson confirmed that the good days were getting rarer. She needs constant supervision, Jacob. And the doctors, well, they say it's progressing rapidly. Vascular dementia, likely. The summons went out. Mom and Uncle Mark descended upon Whispering Pines like rival generals entering disputed territory. The tension crackled the moment Mark's sleek BMW pulled up beside Mom's sensible Toyota. Their greetings were frosty, as avoiding direct contact. They were here out of duty, obligation, and the looming specter of inheritance, not love. Grandma, propped up on the sofa, watched them with those cloudy eyes, a faint, unreadable smile playing on her lips. I felt a pang of sorrow, seeing her witness the fractured remnants of her family. I became the de facto caretaker. Quit my soul-crushing marketing job honestly, a relief disguised as a sacrifice, moved into the dusty guest room. My days became a monotonous cycle of medication schedules, coaxing Grandma to eat, cleaning up minor accidents, and trying to navigate the minefield between Mom and Mark during their increasingly frequent, tense visits. They couldn't agree on anything: what doctor to use, whether to sell the house, what type of care facility might be suitable. Every discussion devolved into hissed arguments in the hallway, rehashing decades-old slights about who got more help with college, who mismanaged Grandpa's small business before it failed, who was Grandma's real favorite. Grandma, during these visits, would often seem agitated. She'd grip my arm with surprising strength, her eyes wide with a fear that felt terrifyingly real. "Jacob," she'd whisper, her breath hot and sour against my ear, "don't leave me alone with them." He looks at me like Frank did before she'd trail off, trembling. "Before what, Grandma?" I'd ask gently, my heart pounding. Was she remembering Grandpa's final, painful illness, his occasional bursts of frustration? She'd just shake her head, tears welling in her milky eyes. Bad. It was bad. "He hurt me, Jacob. He liked it." A shudder would rack her frail body. And she knew. She let it happen. For the money. Always the money. She'd point a trembling finger towards the hallway where Mom and Mark were arguing. Who was she accusing? It was never clear. Mark. Mom. Both. The fragmented accusations felt like shards of glass, sharp, dangerous, impossible to grasp without getting cut. I dismissed them as dementia-fueled paranoia, heartbreaking echoes of past marital strife maybe, but not real. Not now. Then came the episodes. More intense, more specific, and crucially, always when I was alone with her, usually in the quiet hours of the evening after Mom or Mark had left, their unresolved anger hanging thick in the air. Grandma would become distressed, clutching at me, her voice a desperate rasp. Mark shed sob one night, after Uncle Mark had stormed out following a particularly vicious row with Mom about the cost of in-home nursing. "Oh, Jacob, your poor mother." Mark, he came into her room when she was just a girl, 13. He touched her, made her do things. He threatened her, said he'd tell Frank she'd seduced him, that she was a little slut. Her tears were hot on my shirt. Lisa never told, too scared, too ashamed. But I saw the look in his eyes afterwards. Satisfaction. He enjoyed her fear. The detail was horrifyingly vivid. A specific age, a specific threat, a specific emotion ascribed to Uncle Mark. It felt like a punch to the gut. Could it be true? Uncle Mark, the successful but aloof cardiologist, capable of that? My mind reeled. Grandma seemed utterly convinced, lost in the terror of the memory. A few days later, after Mom had tearfully complained about Mark questioning every expense, implying she was trying to siphon funds early, Grandma grabbed my wrist with bone-crunching force. Her eyes were wide, panicked, but laser-focused on me. "Lisa, she's not what she seems, Jacob." When Frank was dying, the morphine, Grandma's voice dropped to a guttural whisper. She increased the dose. I found the syringe. She wanted him gone. Couldn't wait for the money. She smiled, Jacob. She smiled when he took his last breath. Said it was a mercy. But it was greed. Cold, hard greed. Her gaze bore into mine, willing me to believe. She'll do it again. To me. She's already planning it. I see her looking at my pills, calculating. The accusation against my own mother that she murdered Grandpa was monstrous. Yet, delivered with such raw, terrified conviction in the dim lamplight, it planted a seed of sickening doubt. Why would Grandma invent something so vile? Dementia, I told myself fiercely. It has to be. But the seed was there, poisonous and sprouting tendrils of suspicion. I became the unwilling repository of these toxic secrets. Burdened, confused, and increasingly disturbed. I didn't want to believe them. They felt alien, grotesque. But Grandma wasn't presenting them as stories, she was reliving them as visceral, terrifying truths during moments of profound vulnerability. How could I dismiss her anguish as pure fabrication? The psychological weight was immense. I started watching Mom and Mark differently, analyzing their interactions. That protective hug Mom gave me, was it genuine? Or was she manipulating me like Grandma said she manipulated Grandpa's death? That sharp, calculating look Uncle Mark sometimes got when discussing finances, was it just business acumen? Or the predatory gaze Grandma described? Grandma's fragmented whispers became the lens through which I saw my family, distorting everything. The dam holding Mom and Mark's civility together finally burst during a meeting with a palliative care specialist. The doctor was explaining options. Mark, cool and clinical, advocated for a specific, expensive facility known for its security and restraint protocols. Mom, emotionally frayed, snapped. Restraints. Like she's an animal. You just want her locked away and forgotten, Mark. Like you wanted Dad forgotten when he was sick. Always too busy with your important life. Mark's face hardened. Don't you dare lecture me about Dad, Lisa. At least I wasn't hovering like a vulture, waiting for the life insurance to clear. His voice was dangerously low. Something inside Mom shattered. The accusation, so close to the horrific secret Grandma had implanted in me, seemed to strike a nerve I hadn't anticipated. Her face contorted with rage and something else. Guilt. Fear. You sanctimonious bastard. She shrieked, lunging forward slightly. You don't know anything. You weren't there. You didn't see. She choked back a sob, her eyes darting wildly, landing on me for a split second filled with pure, unadulterated panic before she looked back at Mark with venom. Get out! Get out of her house! The unspoken hung thick in the air. You didn't see what I did. My blood ran cold. Was Grandma's horrific story about Mom speeding up Grandpa's death, could it possibly have a grain of truth? Why else would Mom react like that? Mark sighed to the flicker of panic, the unfinished sentence. His eyes narrowed. The suspicion Grandma had carefully planted within him now fully bloomed. He didn't know what Mom had done, but her reaction screamed guilt. He left without another word, his expression icy. Later that night, after Mom had stormed off too, leaving me alone in the oppressive silence, Grandma was unusually calm, almost serene. She patted the seat beside her bed. Come, Jacob, sit. Her voice was clearer than it had been in weeks. Not strong, but focused. I sat weary, emotionally drained. Mark, she said softly, looking not at me, but at the shadows on the ceiling. He always hated Frank, you know? Felt Frank favored Lisa. Blamed him for things that weren't Frank's fault. When Frank got sick, Mark saw his chance. She turned her head slowly, those cloudy eyes finding mine in the gloom. He tampered with Frank's medication. Subtly. Not enough to kill quickly, just enough to prolong the suffering. Had visits stand by the bed and just watch. Sometimes had whisper things, cruel things, about Frank being weak, about how he deserved it, about how Lisa would get nothing in the end. She reached out, her cold fingers brushing my hand. He enjoyed the power, Jacob. Watching the life drain slowly. Hayes enjoying it now. Watching me fade. Watching Lisa and I tear each other apart. A single tear traced a path down her wrinkled cheek. Hayes a monster. Worse than Lisa. Far worse. The image was grotesque. Uncle Mark, the respected healer, secretly a sadistic torturer, prolonging his own father's agony. It defied belief. Yet after Mom's outburst, after weeks of Grandma's relentless, terrifyingly specific whispers, it found fertile ground. The seed of doubt about Mom had taken root. Now this horrifying vine about Mark twisted around it, strangling my reason. I felt nauseous, paralyzed. Who were these people? My family? Or monsters wearing their skins? The atmosphere and whispering pines curdled into pure poison. Mom and Mark stopped pretending. Their interactions were reduced to terse, hate-filled exchanges conducted through me or via clipped, accusatory emails and texts. Grandma's whispered confessions intensified, tailored now to the escalating conflict. To Mom, during a rare moment of vulnerability, when Mom broke down about the cost of everything, Grandma clutched her hand and whimpered, "Hayes draining the accounts, Lisa." Slowly. Moving money. Offshore, I think. He told me he said he'd leave you with nothing. Just like he left Frank with nothing but pain. Mom's face went ashen, then hardened into granite resolve. The seed of financial treachery bloomed into absolute certainty. To Mark, during one of his coldly efficient visits where he reviewed care invoices with detached scrutiny, Grandma suddenly became agitated, pointing a trembling finger at him, her voice a reedy shriek. "Get away! Don't touch me! Like you touched Lisa! I see it in your eyes! The same look! Predator!" Mark recoiled as if slapped, his face a mask of fury and dawning, horrified comprehension. He looked from Grandma's terrified face to me, standing helplessly nearby. I saw it then the moment Grandma's implanted memory of his alleged childhood abuse of Mom crystallized in his mind, not as an accusation from a confused old woman, but as a terrible truth revealed. He didn't deny it. He just stared, his jaw clenched, his eyes burning with a mixture of rage and something like shame. He left without a word, slamming the front door so hard the windows rattled. I was drowning. Drowning in their hatred, in Grandma's terrifying narratives, in the suffocating dread that something catastrophic was coming. I tried to talk to them separately, to reason. "Mom, Uncle Mark, this is the dementia talking. None of this is real." But my pleas fell on deaf ears. The false memories Grandma had implanted weren't just stories anymore, they were foundational truths shaping their reality, justifying their escalating animosity. Mom saw Mark as a pedophile and a thief. Mark saw Mom as a murderous gold digger. And both saw the other as an immediate, existential threat. The breaking point arrived on a stormy Tuesday afternoon. Thunder growled like an angry beast outside, rain lashing the windows of whispering pines. Mom had arrived unexpectedly, frantic. "Hayes done it, Jacob." "Mark." Hayes emptied the joint account. The one for Grandma's care. Over $200,000. Gone. Transferred yesterday. She was hysterical, waving a bank statement, tears streaming down her face. Hayes stealing from his dying mother. That monster. Almost on cue, Mark's car skidded to a halt on the gravel drive. He strode in, ignoring the rain plastering his expensive coat to his shoulders, his face thunderous. He didn't even acknowledge Mom. He walked straight up to me, thrusting a sheaf of papers into my hands. It was a forensic accountant's report. "Look at it, Jacob. Look. Payments. Large, regular payments from Frank's estate account to her personal account, starting 6 months before he died. She was stealing from him while he was dying, funding her pathetic little life." He whirled on Mom, his finger jabbing the air. "You weren't waiting for him to die, Lisa. You were hastening it and robbing him blind. You viper." Mom screamed, a raw, animal sound of rage and betrayal. "Liar. You're the thief. You drained the care account. Look at the statement." She shoved her paper towards him. Mark glanced at it, his lip curling in disdain. "Fabrications. Diversions. Trying to cover your own tracks. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Did you think I wouldn't protect Mother from you? Protect her." Mom laughed, a harsh, brutal sound. "Like you protected me when I was 13. Like you protected Dad by torturing him with his meds. You're sick, Mark. A sick, twisted predator." The air left the room. Time froze. Mom's accusation, the horrific horror of Grandma's whispered secret to me, was now out in the open, hurled at Mark like a grenade. Mark's face went from furious red to deadly white. He didn't flinch. He didn't deny it immediately. A terrible, chilling stillness settled over him. He looked at Mom, then at me, his eyes hollow, devoid of anything recognizably human. So he said, his voice terrifyingly calm, almost conversational. "She told you her little fantasy, and you believed her." He took a step towards Mom. "After everything you've done for this family, after the sacrifices, you listened to the ramblings of a demented old woman and accuse me of that. It's not a fantasy." Mom shrieked, backing away, genuine terror in her eyes now. "She remembers. I remember. The fear the shame Mark's hand shot out, not to strike, but to grip Mom's upper arm with brutal force. "You listen to me. You lying bitch, let go of her." I roared, surging forward, driven by a decade of buried frustration, the unbearable tension, and the horrifying possibility that both of Grandma's monstrous stories might contain fragments of truth. I shoved Mark hard, harder than I intended. He stumbled back, crashing into an antique side table. A heavy crystal vase wobbled, then fell, shattering on the hardwood floor with a sound like a gunshot. Silence. Deafening silence, broken only by the drumming rain and Mom's ragged sobs. Mark picked himself up slowly, shards of crystal crunching under his polished shoes. He didn't look at Mom. He looked at me. His eyes were cold, dead. "Fine," he whispered. "You've chosen your side. You're just like her. Greedy. Delusional." He smoothed his coat, his movements precise, controlled. "Don't bother coming to the funeral." He turned and walked out into the storm, not looking back. The slamming door felt final, apocalyptic. Mom collapsed onto the sofa, weeping uncontrollably. I stood amidst the wreckage, literal and figurative shaking, adrenaline crashing, replaced by a profound, soul-crushing despair. What had we done? What had I done? It physically attacked my uncle. It stood by while accusations of unspeakable crimes were hurled. The false memories Grandma had implanted weren't just believed, they had become the weapons that finally shattered whatever fragile bond remained. The aftermath was a numb haze. Mom stayed for 2 more days, a shell of herself, jumping at shadows, constantly checking the locks. She barely spoke. She just stared into space, haunted. Then she left abruptly, muttering about needing her own space, her own lawyer. The silence she left behind was heavier than before. Oppressive. Final. Grandma seemed peaceful, almost content. Her moments of agitation lessened. She ate better. Sometimes she'd hum tunelessly, staring out the rain-streaked window. It was eerie. It felt like the calm after a devastating storm, but the landscape was utterly ruined. A week crawled by. Then the call came. It was a Detective Miller. His voice was professional, detached. "Jacob Henderson? Am calling regarding your uncle, Dr. Mark Henderson. Am afraid there's been an incident." My heart stopped. He was found deceased in his home early this morning. Apparent suicide. A note was found. The words washed over me, cold and unreal. Suicide. Uncle Mark. The ice-cold, controlled cardiologist. The note Detective Miller paused, choosing his words carefully. "It was addressed to your mother, Lisa Henderson. It contained disturbing allegations. Very serious allegations of a historical nature involving your mother and himself when they were minors." He expressed profound remorse. Shame. Said he couldn't live with the guilt anymore, especially now that it was out. Grandma's implanted memory. The one shed whispered to me, then Mom had screamed at Mark. He hadn't denied it, had internalized it. The false memory of abusing his sister had become his truth, a truth so monstrous it drove him to end his life, and had named Mom in his suicide note. Accused her publicly from beyond the grave. My knees buckled. I sank to the floor in Grandma's dusty hallway, the phone slipping from my nerveless fingers. Before I could even process that horror, my own phone buzzed. A text notification. From Mom. Just 2 words, "I'm sorry," followed by an address. Not her home. A hotel. Downtown. A cold dread, colder than anything it ever felt, seized me. I scrambled up, fumbling with my keys, shouting incoherently at Mrs. Henderson, who'd come running at the sound of my fall. "Watch Grandma. Emergency." The drive downtown was a blur of rain-slicked streets and screaming sirens in my head. I didn't remember parking. I ran through the sterile hotel lobby, ignoring the concierge's call, hammering on the door of room 814. No answer. Panic clawed my throat. I yelled for staff, my voice cracking. A manager arrived, master key in hand, his face alarmed by my desperation. The lock clicked open. The room was neat and personal. The bed was made. On the crisp white duvet lay a single, sealed envelope with my name on it, propped against the pillows. Beside it, an empty prescription bottle. Lorazepam, Mom's medication for anxiety. A bottle I knew had been full just days ago. The bathroom door was ajar. I didn't need to push it open fully. I could see her feet, clad in the sensible shoes she always wore, lying motionless on the cold tile floor. I don't remember screaming. I remember the envelope. My name. Her handwriting. Shaking so violently I could barely tear it open. A single sheet of hotel stationery. Jacob, by the time you read this, it will be over. I can't live with it anymore. The accusations marks note the things Mother said they're true. All of it. The money. Frank's medicine. I did speed it up. I couldn't watch him suffer. But also yes, also because I was weak. Because I saw the money, the freedom. And not the person you thought I was. And the monster Mark said I was. The monster Mother remembered. I see it now. The look in her eyes when she told you she knew. She always knew. Forgive me. Forget me. You deserved a better mother. I'm so sorry. Love, Mom Grandma's other implanted memory. The one of Mom murdering Grandpa. Mom had believed it. The suicide note, the public accusation from Mark, Grandma's terrified whispers they had converged into an inescapable verdict of guilt in her own mind. She had confessed to a crime she didn't commit because a dying woman's false memory had become her reality. My legs gave out. I slid down the wall onto the cold hotel carpet, the damning letter crumpled in my fist, the silence of the room roaring in my ears. Mom. Uncle Mark, gone. Destroyed by figments, by ghosts conjured by the woman I was supposed to be protecting. The funeral arrangements were a grotesque farce. 2 funerals, actually, held days apart. Mine were the only tears shed, and they weren't just grief, they were acid, burning with confusion, horror, and a burgeoning, terrifying suspicion. Grandma Sally remained at Whispering Pines. She seemed detached, calm. Her physical health was failing rapidly now, the doctor said. The dementia was in its final stages. She slept most of the time. When awake, she rarely spoke, and never about Mom or Mark. It was as if they had simply ceased to exist. Mrs. Henderson and I moved through the huge, empty house like ghosts ourselves, tending to the frail shell of the woman who had orchestrated the apocalypse. The guilt was crushing. Had I delivered the killing blows by passing on her poisoned words? Had my own inability to dismiss her stories as pure fantasy fueled the fire? The questions were vipers coiling in my gut, poisoning every waking moment. A month after Mom's funeral, the lawyer called, Mr. Thorne, ancient and dry as dust. Grandma's estate. Everything comes to you, Jacob, he intoned over the phone. The house, the remaining investments, the proceeds from the life insurance policies once probate clears, of course. Life insurance. I hadn't known about substantial policies. He listed figures that made my head spin. A fortune. Blood money. There's also Mr. Thorne added, a specific instruction. A sealed envelope. To be delivered to you by me personally upon her passing. She was most insistent. Grandma Sally died peacefully in her sleep 3 nights later. No final words. No deathbed confession. Just a quiet cessation of breath in the grand, decaying bedroom. The formidable mind, whether truly lost or brilliantly hidden, was finally still. The relief I expected to feel was buried under an avalanche of grief, anger, and that annoying, unshakable suspicion. We buried her next to Grandpa Frank in the Elmwood Cemetery, a small, bleak affair attended only by me, Mrs. Henderson, the lawyer, and the bored-looking pastor. The weight of the empty graves beside their moms, Mark's, was physical. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was accusatory. A week later, Mr. Thorne arrived at Whispering Pines with the envelope. Thick, cream paper, Grandma's elegant, swirling script on the front for Jacob. To be opened alone, Mrs. Henderson tactfully retreated to the kitchen. My hands trembled as I broke the heavy wax seal reel wax, stamped with her initial S. Inside wasn't a letter. It was a smaller, sealed envelope and a single, unmarked DVD. My breath hitched. I shoved the DVD into the ancient player connected to the rarely used living room TV. The screen flickered to life, and there she was, Grandma Sally. But not the frail, confused wraith attended. This was Grandma Sally as I remembered her from years ago. Sharp, vibrant, dressed in one of her crisp linen suits, her white hair impeccably coiffed. She sat in her study, surrounded by her books, the portrait of the formidable psychologist. Her eyes were clear, focused, and filled with an unnerving intensity. She smiled. Not a warm smile. A predator's smile. Triumphant, cold. "Hello, Jacob." Her voice rang out, strong, articulate, devoid of any tremor. "If you're watching this, then the plan has reached its conclusion, and I am, presumably, finally free of this tedious charade." She leaned forward slightly, her gaze piercing through the screen. "You look shocked. Good. That means I performed adequately. The decline, the dementia, all meticulously constructed. An actor's performance honed over a lifetime of understanding human frailty, human gullibility, especially the gullibility of those who think they see vulnerability." My blood turned to ice. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The room tilted. "You see, Jacob," she continued, her voice smooth as silk, "Frank's death wasn't peaceful. It wasn't quick. It was protracted, agonizing." And Lisa and Mark, her lips thinned. They weren't there. Oh, they visited. Briefly. When it suited them. When they thought there might be something to gain, or a will to influence. But the long nights, the relentless pain, the slow, humiliating erosion of the brilliant man I loved. That was my burden. Mine alone. They bickered over money while he gasped for breath in the next room. They treated his suffering, our suffering, as an inconvenience, an obstacle to their inheritances, their petty grievances. Hatred, pure and corrosive, flashed in her eyes. They killed him, Jacob. Not with pills or poison, but with their neglect. Their monumental, unforgivable selfishness. They watched him drown and offered not a hand, but a bill. They deserved punishment, not legal punishment. The courts are blind to this kind of murder. No, they deserve to feel it, to drown in it, to have the very foundations of their self-righteous worlds ripped out from under them. She smiled again, chillingly. And what better weapon than memory? The one thing they thought was sacrosanct. Their own minds. She steepled her fingers. "I am, as you know, an expert in memory, particularly in how malleable it is, how susceptible to suggestion, especially in states of heightened emotion, stress, or perceived vulnerability. My decline was the perfect delivery system. Who questions the ramblings of a confused old woman? Especially when those ramblings tap into existing insecurities, ancient resentments. Lisa always feared poverty, feared being cheated. Mark always carried a deep-seated, unspoken resentment towards Frank, a need for control. And you, my dear," sweet Jacob, her gaze softened momentarily, almost pityingly. "You were the perfect conduit. Conscientious, guilt-ridden, trusting, so eager to help, to believe your poor, confused grandmother needed protection. You absorbed my whispers like a sponge and radiated the tension, the suspicion, that made Lucy and Mark so exquisitely receptive. I felt violently ill. Every whispered confession in the dark, every terrified accusation, all deliberate, calculated, poison dripping slowly into their ears, filtered through my horrified belief. The memories I implanted," Grandma stated calmly, clinically, like she was discussing a case study, were designed to be maximally destructive. For Lisa, the conviction that Mark had abused her as a child of violation so profound it shattered any possibility of sibling bond, playing on her latent victimhood and fear of him. And the belief that she had hastened Frank's death, confirming her deepest, darkest fear that she was the greedy monster Mark always implied she was. For Mark, the certainty that Lisa was a murderous thief validating his lifelong contempt, and the devastating idea that he had deliberately prolonged Frank's suffering a perversion of his healer identity, playing on his secret guilt over not being able to save him, twisting it into monstrous intent. Each memory was a mirror reflecting their worst fears about themselves and each other, distorted into undeniable truth. She paused, savoring it, watching it unfold through your reactions, through Mrs. Henderson's worried reports. It was deeply satisfying. The escalating paranoia, the toxic accusations, the way they looked at each other not with sibling rivalry, but with the absolute, visceral hatred of predator and prey. I knew it was only a matter of time. The mutually assured destruction I engineered was inevitable. Suicide was the most statistically probable outcome, given their personalities and the nature of the implanted traumas. Lisa, consumed by fabricated guilt. Mark, shattered by a monstrous, false identity he couldn't bear. She nodded, satisfied. Elegant, wouldn't you say? Rage, white-hot and blinding, surged through me. I wanted to smash the screen, to scream, to tear down the walls of this cursed house. You may hate me now, Jacob, she said, her voice losing none of its calm precision. That's acceptable. Necessary collateral damage. But understand this, what I did for Frank, for the justice the world denied him. Lisa and Mark created their own hells through their actions. I merely showed them the door and locked it behind them. She leaned back. The house, the money, it's yours. A pittance compared to the cost, I know. Consider it recompense for your unwitting role. Or blood money, whichever you prefer. Burn it down. Keep it. I care not. My work is done. She looked directly into the camera, her eyes like chips of ice. Goodbye, Jacob. Try not to dwell on it. Memory, after all, is such a fragile thing. The screen went black. I sat in the suffocating silence of Whispering Pine's living room for hours, maybe days. Time lost meaning. The revelations crashed over me in relentless waves, the horrifying scale of her deception, the chilling precision of her malice. The utter annihilation of my family based on lies she meticulously crafted and fed through my own naive hands. The grief for Mom and Mark, twisted and complicated as it was, warred with a searing hatred for the woman whose portrait now seemed to leer down from above the mantelpiece. The money felt filthy. The house felt like a tomb, a monument to her brilliant, monstrous victory. I found the smaller envelope. Inside was a single, folded sheet of paper. Not her handwriting this time. A printed list, dates, times, medication names, detailed notes, observations of Lisa's and Mark's reactions during visits, analysis of their arguments, their triggers. It was her clinical log. The case notes for her experiment, her masterpiece of destruction. Proof, not just to me, but potentially to the world, of what she'd done. Was it a final boast, a challenge, or some twisted absolution proving her mind was sound, her actions deliberate to the end? I never showed the notes or the DVD to anyone. What would be the point? To clear the names of the dead. They died believing the lies were truths. To condemn Grandma? She was beyond earthly judgment. To implicate myself as the unwitting weapon. The guilt was already a crushing weight I'd carry forever. Mrs. Henderson, God bless her, never asked. She packed her bags quietly a week later. This house, it's got too many ghosts now, Jacob, she said, her eyes filled with a sorrow that told me she suspected far more than she let on. You should leave it to. I sold Whispering Pines. The money sits in accounts I can't bring myself to touch. I moved far away, but I can't escape the maze. Grandma Sally's memory maze. She built it in the decaying corridors of her own home, in the vulnerable recesses of her children's minds, and she used me as the guide, leading them deeper into the terrifying falsehoods until they destroyed each other. And the cruelest twist. The only true memory I have left of my mother and uncle is the one she forced upon me, the memory of them as monsters. Her final, devastating implant. She didn't just kill them. She rewrote them. She stole my family twice over. And she won. From her grave, cold and satisfied in the knowledge that her vengeance was absolute, Grandmother Sally won.